check out these TikTokers. Also, don't send them any hate. Like and follow them.
Storytime on how my Uber driver tried to kidnap me on my birthday. Okay, y'all, so today's story is my own. And thank you guys for 1 million followers. All right, y'all, let's get into it. Okay, so boom. About 2 years ago in 2019, I lived by myself in my own apartment. At this time, I was at the end of my lease and I was actually moving to another apartment. I had to do everything by myself because I had nobody to help me, so I had to go get a U-Haul truck. This was my first time using Uber because I have my own car. But to get to U-Haul, I had to Uber over there so I could get the truck and then go from apartment to apartment. My first Uber driver bringing me to the U-Haul truck was fine. I had no issues with him and it was pretty normal and fast. So once I was done with the U-Haul truck and I was done moving, I had to return the truck to its location. And then I had to Uber back to my apartment where my car was. Now this second Uber driver, this is where the issue comes in. Y'all, it was literally crazy. My life was at stake. Like for part two on how my Uber driver tried to kidnap me on my birthday. Okay, so boom, like I said, I returned my U-Haul truck and I waited for my Uber driver to come pick me up. When my Uber driver came to pick me up, right from the beginning, I knew something was off about him. Always trust your instincts. He was a little weird and off, but I told myself that it's only a 10-minute drive and it will be over soon. So I sat on the back of the car and I just stayed on my phone. You know, minding my business. And then the guy just started talking to me like I guess he was trying to have small talk. But the weird thing is I couldn't understand what he was saying. And I got footage, you guys. Listen to this. Yeah, I didn't know what he was saying, but I just thought he wanted to do small talk. So I just was like, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, ooh, ah. But then all of a sudden, he went off the path of my route. I was like, excuse me, you took the wrong turn. Then he turned back and looked at me and said, I think we're going exactly where we need to be. It gets worse. Like for part three. Part 3 on how my Uber driver tried to kidnap me on my birthday. Okay, so boom, like I said, he went off the path of my route. And I said, excuse me, you made the wrong turn. Then he turned around and looked at me and said, I think we're going exactly where we need to be. I still didn't get it and I looked confused and I was just like, just drop me off at this gas station here. And child, he locked the door. At that moment, my heart sank and I knew exactly what was going on. I was being kidnapped on my birthday. He locked all the doors and put child lock so I wouldn't be able to unlock and leave either. I was under pressure, but I knew I had to think fast and get out of this situation. Y'all, he was driving fast, but thank God he wasn't on a highway, so there was red lights. And I live in Miami, so traffic hour is real. I knew that once he stopped at a red light, that would be my only chance to get the hell out this car. So here we go. We stopped at the red light and I took his head and bashed it into his steering wheel. He didn't see it coming, so I did it pretty easy. Running out of time, like for part 4. Part 4 on how my Uber driver tried to kidnap me on my birthday. Okay, so boom, like I said, he stopped at a red light and I took his head and started bashing it into the wheel. He didn't see it coming, so that's why I was able to overpower him at that moment. As I was bashing his head, I knew that his door was the only way I was able to get out because of the child lock. As I bashed his head, I unlocked the door and I literally slinged my whole body to the front of the car and I was literally on top of him. Unlocked the door, opened it, and I just jumped out. He held on to one of my legs, so I ended up falling on the floor on the street. But at this point, everyone was looking and someone was coming to my rescue, so he just closed his door and locked it. And as soon as the light turned green, he bolted. I was bruised all over, like my arm, but mostly my knees. I went inside the gas station and I waited for my friend to come pick me up. Y'all, all this on my birthday ruined my whole day. But I say that to say this: be careful. Thank you guys for 1 mil.
What are you willing to do to stay young forever? Once there was a beautiful Malaysian woman, but she was never quite satisfied with her appearance. So she decided to go to a shaman who told her that through black magic and rituals, she could be young and beautiful forever. He gave her a potion to drink and told her that she couldn't look in the mirror for 30 days. However, this woman was curious. Every time she touched her face, she could feel her wrinkles disappearing. Everyone she met told her that she looked great. So on the 29th day, her curiosity was too much. So she took a glimpse of herself in the mirror. The mirror instantly cracked and so did her face. She turned into a horrible monster, all because of her curiosity. So she went back to the shaman, hoping that he could help her reverse this terrible mistake. But he said that she can only reverse her looks if she drank the blood of the young. And if she didn't do that, then she would have to live as a monster for the rest of her life. Legend says that she's still out there somewhere, roaming around looking for her next target, all so that she can be young and beautiful again.
Story time about how I found out my boyfriend was cheating on me with men. A few years back, I was dating a guy who was 10 years older than me. I was in college and he was working as a paramedic in a big city and a volunteer firefighter for his hometown. He had been open and honest about his past with me about fooling around with a few guys. I was accepting of it and never thought much of it because we had what I thought an honest relationship. About a year into our relationship, I was at his house one day hanging out with him when he had gotten a phone call about an event for his fire department that he'd forgotten about. He quickly put on his formal uniform, kissed me goodbye, and rushed out of the door. He said it would only be around an hour or so I decided to stay at his house and wait for him. It was normal for him to leave randomly to respond to fire calls for his local fire department. I started doing my school paper on my iPad and decided to switch over to his laptop to do the rest because it was easier. I didn't plan on snooping, but he had left his Facebook open and I kept hearing a notification that someone was messaging him. I went to close out the Facebook and realized it was someone I had never heard of before. I saw an alarming message about a BJ from this guy. At this point, I couldn't help myself and I needed to know more, so I started reading the chat between them. It only got worse from here. Part 2 of how I found out my boyfriend was cheating on me with men. When I opened the messages on Facebook between my boyfriend and this guy, my heart dropped. It turns out that he met up with this guy while I was in class or at work and took him to his firehouse. They ended up hooking up and going all the way. As I read further back, I realized that he met this guy on a fire call at work. He worked in an area where there were several gay bars. When he was responding to a call, he took this guy's drunk friend to the hospital and this guy tagged along. They exchanged numbers and decided to meet up. I had recalled my boyfriend telling me about going on a call to a gay bar recently and being hit on, but that's all he said. However, it gets worse. He told this guy that I was a cover-up for his very conservative Catholic family. Panic set in when I read this and I went downstairs to get a bottle of water. His mom was in the kitchen and without knowing what I just saw, she sat me down to tell me that her son was a pathological liar and I shouldn't trust him. I eventually went back upstairs to wait for him and left the Facebook messages open. When he arrived and realized that I knew, he immediately panicked and started apologizing. He swore up and down that he was straight, and for some reason I didn't have the heart to end the relationship with him right then. I later found him in a group chat for gay men talking about sex and eventually ended the relationship because I couldn't trust him. He started dating another woman a few months after.
This is why you should never trust your friend if they tell you that their pet don't bite. Charla Nash would go over to her friend's house, Sandra, every now and then to watch over her 200-pound chimpanzee. Charla knew straight off the bat that she did not like that chimpanzee because it always scared her. There was even a time where the chimpanzee jumped on Charla's back and ripped out a chunk of her hair. Charla started crying, but her friend Sandra thought it was funny. Sandra would not be laughing at anything that chimpanzee did much longer after this day. One day, Charla gets a call from Sandra saying her chimpanzee wouldn't go back in the cage and she needed some help. Charla drove over there to help her friend, and immediately after, Sandra would have to call the police. By the time the police arrived, Charla was laying on the ground with half of her face eaten off, no jaw, her nose hanging from her face by a piece of her skin, and with both of her hands ripped off. This is what Charla looked like before her attack. Her entire face was mutilated after the attack, but since the photos are super graphic, they'll be posted on my Instagram story. Part 2 will include the unsettling phone call Sandra made to the police and how she described her friend getting eaten and ripped apart. This is going to be part 2 of why you should never trust your friend if they tell you that their pet don't bite. Sandra never imagined that after she called her friend over to help her put her 200-pound chimpanzee back in his cage, since he wouldn't go in, she would have to make a phone call to the police and report how her chimpanzee ate her friend alive. This is the audio clip.
Please!
What's the problem with your friend? I need to know.
Let the police up! With a gun! With a gun! Hurry
Who
up!
has a gun?
Please, hurry up! He's killing my girlfriend!
What is the problem?
He's killing my friend!
Who's killing your friend?
My chimpanzee!
Oh, your chimpanzee is killing your friend.
He ripped her apart! Hurry up! And she's dead. She's dead.
Why are you saying that she's dead?
She's dead. He ripped her apart.
Charla actually ended up surviving. She was rushed to the hospital where they said she looked like she had gone through a meat grinder. Charla is very lucky to still be with us today. The most recent update about Charla is in her interview with Oprah that I have linked in my Instagram story.
Storytime about the toxic boy that I almost started dating. So a little background information. Him and I both met on a set of a movie that we were in. Well, a few days into filming, he asked me out. So of course I said yes. And it was literally the most amazing first date ever. So he asked for a second date and I said yes, of course. And the second date was terrible. He literally just tried to get in my pants the whole time. So then he asked me for a third date. And for some reason I said yes, hoping that it was not anything like the second date. And he didn't show up. So I pretty much got stood up. And then he even blocked my number. So a few months go by and I end up moving in with my best friend. about an hour away from where I was living when I met him. Well, the one night she came home and told me that he had messaged her on Instagram, which I thought was funny as hell because my best friend did not swing that way. So she pretends to flirt with him and asks him to come over. So he drives an hour to our apartment, and when he walks in, he just sees me standing in the kitchen. He immediately walked out.